Good afternoon, my name is Patrick Fitzmaurice, and this video is about making LabView output to Excel. Let's get started. Here I have a block diagram, and I've already got some things set up here, so let's demonstrate that it works first. Hit run, and it takes a couple seconds, and then you can see down my toolbar, Excel is flashing, and we've got 5 sheets in this workbook. First one's blank, second one, third one, fourth one, and fifth one all have data, and you notice that 2 and 4, data is kind of short, and 3 and 5, the data is a little bit longer. And that's easily seen to be reflected by our VI. What happened there is that the first and third ones with data, we're using text data that has been formatted here to have only 5 digits after the decimal place. And that's using this VI here, which is found under string operations in the palette. And it's format into string. If you want to use this one, you can right click, you can place it in your VI, right click on it and select help. And then you'll get an online web manual that tells you all the things that you can do with it. Just like that, you click on help here. I don't actually think it's the way to go, but it does work, and so it's in the demonstration. This particular format code is how you make it to 5 places after the decimal. The F needs loading. Anyway, the longer ones just took the raw output of the random number generator as passed through a couple arrays. As usual for this sort of thing, we have a loop generating or collecting our data, and then it all gets dumped into the sheet at once. If I were to run this again, it would pop up, would light up Excel again, and there would be 2 more sheets in there. So how do I get sheets into my file? Well, I use the Create Report VI and the Add Worksheet VI, Excel Add Worksheet VI, and the Excel Easy Table VI. I also used further over to the left a File Dialog VI to get a path, which I was putting into the Create Report. And this here's a constant to set what kind of report it is. I'll show you how to do all this stuff right now. First, let's find these VIs. Under Report Generation, we've got Create Report. You place that down just about anywhere. Then you need to wire something up to it. You can see up at the top there, top toolbar there, that my VI no longer will run. Why? Well, because one required input is missing. That's report type. Right click on report type, create a constant, and that gives you a little menu. Just as you saw up there, we've got other options besides Excel, HTML, and Word. But unless you're doing a whole lot more work inside your VI to do the formatting, I don't think you'll ever use any of the other ones. Excel's the way to go. Anyhow, then going back in to the report generation folder, we need the Excel specific ones. See my head's kind of on top of them, so there we go, Excel specific. And you go into Excel specific and you find not advanced, pardon. Under Excel General, you find Add Worksheet, and I'll go ahead and place that one so you can see how it works. Make sure the wires auto-connect whenever you do this. Whenever you use these report generation sub-VIs, they need to auto-connect to each other. They need that report input and the error input wired up. And you can see that this right here will run, although this will just create a worksheet with 2 spreadsheets in it and no data, or workbook I should say, workbook with two sheets and no data. We're not putting any data in yet. For that, we need to go into report generation and get, once again, Excel specific, and then the table. There it is. As before, make sure that the inputs wire up, place it. Now you can see once again that my VI will no longer run. The arrow's turned into a broken arrow because this needs at least one input. That is the text data. I'm not going to wire it up because I actually already have them wired up above, and we've already seen that they work. Text data is an array of arrays. More properly, it's a two-dimensional array. But thinking of it as an array of arrays is helpful for making sure you get things put together correctly to work the first time. So, you've got array number 1 goes into another array at the exit of the loop, which is the auto-indexed tunnel. The auto-indexed tunnel takes single values from the loop each time the loop runs and adds them to an array. So that's the outer array. It's the last one created. So you can think of this as we put some random number of values into a box, and then we put that box into a bigger box. And then the loop runs again, and we have a second box of random number of values to go into the outer box. That's not how it actually works. Again, it's actually a multi-dimensional array, two-dimensional array, in fact. But it can be thought of that way because that explains how the VI interprets it. The VI uses the outer array to set the column, or no, pardon me, I'm tired, the row number. That's the row numbers using the index of the outer array, and it sets the column numbers using the index of the inner array. And so you can see here we've got 3 column headers. I'll show you how to attach those in a second. And then you got 3 cell values, and they'll go under the column header, and then the loop will run again, and there'll be 3 more cell values, and they'll go under the previous 3, and so on and so forth until the loop completes. Now, what actually happens is the loop runs until it's done, and then they all get stuck in at once. But let's not split hairs. So, you'll notice that I have the same VI in 2 places, and one of them's got a pink input, one's got an orange one. Orange one is a numeric array, pink one is a string array. When you first place it on the sheet, you'll actually, if you go and right click on it, you'll see under select type that it's set to automatic. It will actually take either kind right now. However, I find it a little more straightforward to set to numeric. I like that better. When you do that, you'll notice that the input, the text data input, is now orange instead of pink. It's still called text data, but now it's orange. Anyway, you make your array of arrays, you feed it in to the text data input. And this is basically, like we did in the other VI. You use the build array, you use an auto-index tunnel. If you do it this way, you have your data is going to be sideways instead of vertical, as it's done here. The only reason it came out properly in our final output was that this transpose input was wired up on the spreadsheet. VI here, that's the one that makes the text file. And because it's not really an array of arrays, but a 2-dimensional array, transpose just rotates the matrix. And so it works. But it's better to have the data in the right format to begin with. Okay, so how do you wire up the column headers? You find the input, which is on the bottom side, on the right edge of the bottom side, column headers, and you right click on it, and you select create constant, and you get a single, a 1x1 array. You see right now that we got little tiny blue grab handles on that array. That's actually on the value inside the array. We don't want those yet. We want the outer ones. They're bigger. You get your mouse over those and you expand your array constant to have as many entries as you need it to have. Then you go back inside and you find one of those little handles and you make the array physically wider or visually wider so that you can type long things into it and see them on your screen. Double click inside one of the cells to get it to be editable. And here I'm going to put in time and money and happiness. Much like Excel, hitting Tab moves to the next next entry in the array. But enter does not exit editing. You've got to just click outside. So that's my column headers put in under column headers. I've got data type of the report set to Excel. This now still won't work because you have to give it an input. You can see just above, you just wire it up. Instead, now we need to talk about how you get this to be saved as a file. You run this. If you have the data input wired up, if you run this, you will get something like that. It'll just come out and it'll work. But it won't be saved. If I close this without saving, then it will go back to having only one sheet in it that's blank. So you're going to need to do some interaction with the file system. So I recommend using the file dialog. File dialog is found under File IO, and then you go into that subfolder and you find Advanced File Functions, and then right up there at the top is File Dialog. When you place it, it's going to give you a pop-up window. That pop-up window is going to ask you whether you're selecting new files, existing files, or both. And it's also going to ask whether it's a file or folder or both. For our purposes of making an Excel sheet, it's always going to be a file. And the question of new or existing is up to you. I would pick one of those and not leave it on both, because you want either to start a new file that all your data for the new project going into, or you want to continue working on a file that you've already made. So let's suppose that you're making a new file. And you want to make sure it actually gets saved. And so you're kind of forcing yourself to do this. You could just ignore the file dialog, not put one in at all. You would also skip probably the new worksheet, because your brand new sheet, maybe you want the data to go into the first sheet. Maybe you don't. Maybe you like having that blank sheet at the beginning for putting notes in or something. That's up to you. If you don't want to have a blank sheet at the beginning, you just don't use this new worksheet VI. You just connect the easy table directly to the new report. That will give you an Excel window will pop up and it'll have your data in it. But it won't be saved. If you want to save that, you will need an additional tool from the report generation set of tools, and that's Save Report to File. You just put it in at the end of the chain, let it auto-connect, and then you get your selected path from your file dialog, and you feed it in to report file path. The way it wired is kind of ugly, but that's it. This will create a 2-sheet Excel file and save it to disk with the name that you select. If you wire up the data. There's no data wired up, so it won't run at all. What about if you want to edit an existing file, or rather add to? Editing isn't really what you want to ever do with this program, but adding to it is fine. So what do you want to add to a file? Well, in addition to wiring up where you want it to save, you'll also want to wire up where you want it to read from. And it's going to be an existing file. So you go in and select Properties, say Existing File, and you wire up to the selected path, and you connect it to the template input on the new report. You can see that I've done that up here. I've got a path coming in from some other stuff I was doing, and it goes to the template input. It's called the template input because you can have named ranges inside this file. If you name them, you can later, with other VIs, pick and choose where the data goes precisely in the sheet by name, and this can give you fancy formatted reports with like company name and author name and report date and all this other stuff in it. If you want that stuff, then this could be useful. But if all you want to do is to add a new sheet to an existing spreadsheet and then save it, here's your setup. just like this. You got your file dialog that asks for an existing file. It feeds that existing file to report generation. Report generation then feeds it to add a worksheet. Add a worksheet sends it over to easy table, which puts data in that new blank worksheet, and saves it. In my own work with some of the stuff in class, I never used the save dialog, or the save, not dialog, VI. I just saved it when I was done. If you are using the same path for each run of this, if you like run continuously and the path doesn't change from run to run, then it will just it'll keep writing to the file it's already open. Although I did do some additional work, I had it only run the file dialog. I put the file dialog inside of a conditional. So it would only ask for a file if there wasn't already a file set. But this will work. This will work every time. It'll ask you what file, and it'll create a report using that file name as I outlined them. If you only want to make a new one, you only wire up the dialog to save, and you make it, you use it, set in the properties, you set it to new. If you want to add to an existing file, you set it to existing, and you have it go to both the report and the save VIs. I hope that I have managed to be clear and that this helps you, or helps somebody with Excel output from LabView. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.